Hey there, and welcome to Open Class number 28. I'm super glad to have you here. Hope you're doing really well. We have a number of questions today. I think there are 5 actually that we're going to go over. And just a quick little announcement before we get started. Fistwood, if you're turning in, I asked Chrisanne, who submitted that short email that became an Insomnia Insight, where we talked about self-compassion. And I asked her if she was willing to share more. So she actually wrote me a long email about her success story. So I'll read that in a couple of days. Thank you, Fistwood, for asking that. And I also want to say thanks to Riley for submitting a great idea for an episode that became that recently uploaded episode where me, Coach Michael, and Martin talk. So that was really cool. So yeah, with that said, let's jump right in and take a look at some questions. Sorry for the delay, Daniel and Ernest particularly. There was a little bit of different week last week, so I didn't get to all the questions I intended to. But here we are. Daniel, longtime supporter, asks, how common are the sleep jerks and insomnia, if you don't mind me asking? Do you get that a lot? I could be fine for months, then the jerks start and insomnia and anxiety follow. So the question here is we talk a lot about those, hypnic jerks that you may have when you're about to fall asleep. And the question here is how common is it that you don't have them for a long time and then they appear again? And, I would say, I don't think there's anything strange or unusual with that. I think for a lot of people, they happen, episodically, then you don't have them for a long time, and then they happen more again. Now, what I think is the most important here is that, the hypnic jerks, when you're about to fall asleep and you have a jerk, that in itself is very much normal. Pretty much everyone experiences that now or then. Most of a lot of us, I want to say, have that every single time we fall asleep, but we just don't pay any attention to them. But when we for some reason do, and we identify them as that's weird, then we pay attention, we become more hyper aroused, we have more of them, we react more to them, and then that can really snowball. So the insight here, I think, is really that it is not that you just sleep well for a month and then out of the blue you have more hypnic jerks and then they kind of take over everything, and then you have to work to get them away or something like that. I truly believe that it is more like this. You sleep very well because you don't really pay any attention. Then something leads you to pay more attention to your sleep, to pay more attention to those jerks. They come on the radar for some reason, and then you experience more and more of them. And then when you put less attention again, they go away, meaning it's not like they have a life of its own and they just come and go. They are produced by, you focusing on them more. So I think that's the key thing. And the same thing with insomnia itself. It doesn't just come out of the blue. It can seem like it, but it doesn't come out of the blue and have a life of its own. It is when you start focusing on again that brings it back on the radar. So Daniel, I want to thank you for this question. I hope this made sense, and that I hope you already are back where you were before, where you didn't have them. So I hope that made sense. And as always, please come back with questions if you have them. Faye is here live with us. It's interesting, Faye. I was just looking through one of my emails, my Insomnia Insight email, and the last email there was from you from a couple months ago. And I'm very happy to read this. I'm doing great. That is amazing. No more weird, vivid dreams that I feel like I didn't sleep much. Actually sleeping without medication now, and that's super amazing. Only about 5 hours. I wake up. Still, that is great. That is fantastic. I'm so happy, Faye. For those of you who don't know, Faye contributed with a number of questions for a while there and had some panic attacks, etc. So I'm really happy about this. And I think just keep doing what you're doing, and you'll do even better. Fantastic. Super happy to hear this. I sleep only 5 hours a couple of times, but this is huge progress. I think education is really the key. I've been watching lots of your videos, and I think my subconscious mind is really relaxing in knowing facts about anxiety and hyper arousal. I could not agree more with this live comment here from Faye. Education is the key. I truly believe that, because so much of insomnia, anxiety, panic attacks, etc., come from like the fear of the unknown. What's happening to me? I don't understand it. When you start learning, then it's like, oh, other people have the same thing. Oh, it's driven by hyperarousal. Oh, I understand it. Then when you understand something, there's really so much less to worry about. So that's absolutely the key. Faye Long says, I appreciate you, Daniel. Anytime. It's just, I'm honestly so happy every time there's a question. And when I started this channel 2 years ago, this is what I dreamt would happen, that I would interact with people like yourself, Faye. So this is fantastic. Super happy. And by the way, talking of like learning and the subconscious mind, somebody else, I think it is Tony, who submitted a question. And I don't say, everybody should do this at all, but Tony is one of those who started literally from like Insomnia Insight, like episode 1, and has watched like 400 episodes. And I've heard a few people do that, like really get into learning on this channel. And those who've done that have done really well. So just saying that, I think education is totally the key. Faye, super happy. Okay, cool. That was a really nice little interlude from Faye. And now let's move on to this one from Ernest, also longtime supporter. How are you, man? I'm good. Haven't talked in a while. So for the past month or so, I've been consistently getting 5 to 7 hours of sleep, probably averaging 6. However, I still feel really tired. Do you think it just takes time after all that sleep loss to regain energy? I did suffer extreme insomnia for a while, maybe 2-3 hours a night, or even 0 hours. So I'm pleased to have made progress in that aspect, but I feel like SHIT. Ernest, I think this is a really important question. And again, sorry I didn't get to it sooner, but I think it's a very important one. Firstly, I want to say this. You probably, Ernest, have heard me say this a lot, and it is the following. When someone says, I'm starting to sleep better, but I feel even more tired, well, that to me is a sign, a very encouraging sign. That to me signals that this person is so much less hyper aroused that they're now starting to really feel their fatigue. It's a good sign because the hyperarousal is going down. My go-to example, example, or what's the word I'm looking for? Analogy here is when you're in like an intense, like you're playing, like, let's say soccer, you're just playing. Somebody asks you, are you tired? No, I'm playing. I'm good. I feel great, because your blood is pumping, adrenaline is flowing, etc. You don't feel tired because you're kind of in the game, right? But then when you sit down, you're like, whoa, now I feel tired. Same thing. When you are no longer in that kind of battle struggle with insomnia, when the hyperarousal goes down, you often feel more tired because you now feel it. It's unmasked. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if there's I don't know of any specific, cut off, but I want to say this, that post game fatigue, let's call it, or post arousal fatigue, that it's a good sign, doesn't last that long. I would say maybe like a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, something like that. When someone has slept pretty well, not really struggled with sleep for a couple of months or longer, and is still feeling like unrefreshed, I wake up, I don't feel refreshed, I feel tired during the day, then my thinking goes, I don't think this is actually that post-arousal fatigue anymore. I think this is something else. And so I will just share with you like kind of my standard spiel when it comes to this in clinic. And let's say I had a patient that we did a sleep test and it showed no sleep apnea, or there wasn't really any indication for sleep testing. It wasn't really necessary. And this patient also doesn't really have insomnia. They just have like unrefreshing sleep is what I call it. So they sleep pretty good, no particular things there, but they're just unrefreshed. They're unrefreshed during the day. And typically it's like, I don't really feel, it doesn't matter if I sleep more or less, I still feel tired. I feel tired pretty much throughout the day. If I take a nap, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. I just like never really feel refreshed. So when I hear that story, my go-to thinking is sleep is not the culprit. Sleep is not the culprit. It is typically pretty obvious when sleep is the culprit. And in this scenario, I say, I don't think how you feel during the day is related to how much you sleep or the quality of your sleep. And that can first seem like kind of disappointing. It's like, oh, so what else could it be, right? But I always think of it as a good thing, because the more focus comes off sleep, the better sleep gets. That's one good thing, because if you start thinking, I can't figure it out, but for some reason my sleep isn't good. Maybe I'm not getting enough REM sleep. I got to boost my REM sleep. That's what I got to do. Then you go down the rabbit hole of like the sleep improvement rabbit hole. You pay more attention to your sleep. You have more trouble sleeping. You feel more tired. And then the whole thing spirals out of control. So when you can say sleep isn't the culprit, and then always, nothing here is medical advice, just me sharing my thoughts here, right, Ernest? But when someone can go to a place where like sleep is not the culprit, that's one good thing, because then you leave sleep alone, and sleep does well, and you don't go down that rabbit hole. So then the question becomes, of course, so why am I feeling so tired? And I think here's another thing I share with the patients often, is that fatigue, chronic fatigue, what we call chronic fatigue, I believe comes from the same place insomnia does. It comes from a place of trying to escape, avoid, resist something that is unpleasant, and then that becomes more sticky. And when we try to like escape the emotion of anxiety, we have more anxiety, right? When we try not to have thoughts, we get racing thoughts. When we try not to be sad or escape that, we get depressed, etc. And I think the same thing plays a role with fatigue, that sometimes the fatigue becomes the thing we want to get away from, escape, resist, try to figure out, etc. Then it becomes more sticky, just like the insomnia. So oftentimes, I think the key is to, do things even when you're tired. Show yourself that it doesn't have to, dictate what you do during the day, and like take baby steps, do more and more. And like same thing like with insomnia, try not to figure it out, try to like almost befriend it, be okay with it, etc. I think that is often the key. So those are just some thoughts there, Ernest. I hope that helped. As always, please let me know if there's any follow-up question, and I'll be super happy, of course, to answer that. Okay, very well. So we talked to Ernest, very, very good. And now here's a comment from Hugo from the other day that I wanted to bring up. Hugo says, I feel strongly about joining either your BedTyme app or your self-coaching program. The main thing for me is that I like to be in touch with you or Michael on a regular basis about the progress or lack of it in my process of overcoming insomnia. Which would you recommend? So I want to say this, that the teaching is the same. The teaching that I share here in open class on the channel, the teaching that is in the app BedTyme, and the teaching in the self-coaching program is the same. So the question of what should you choose if you would like a little bit more support, it depends on you. Meaning, I want to share this. If you are someone who likes texting, you like kind of like bringing your phone up and shooting a text and kind of quickly communicating with somebody like that one-on-one, and perhaps you're kind of on the move, perhaps you have small kids, you don't have that much time, you need that flexibility, then I think BedTyme is great. It's an app, you download, you communicate with me, there's a curriculum, perfect for you. On the other hand, if you like being part of a community, like you don't mind sharing your thoughts with other people and getting input from other students, etc., then I think the self-coaching master program is perfect for you, because you get input again, not only from myself and Coach Michael, who you have access to like right through Slack, all the time, and you also get input from other people, and it's also a video-based course. So the curriculum is video-based. So if you like learning by video, perfect for you. Spoiler alert, Hugo actually joined us in our self-coaching master program, but I wanted to share that for anyone else that is having those type of questions. Very well. So with that said, let us jump along here to our next question. This is from Beanburger. And, when I read this, I was like, there's so much here to talk about. So I'm really, really happy for the opportunity to bring this comment up today. And again, a little bit sorry for the delay here. So let's read this. And I think there was a number of things actually that I want to talk about. I'm going to try to keep track here with a little piece pen and paper here. Hi, Daniel. Been following your videos for a while, and just when I think things are getting better, I seem to return to start like in snakes and ladders. Not slept at all for 3 nights now. Fitbit agrees it's pretty accurate for me when recording sleep, no sleep. Although I know you and Coach Munch will believe it's not that accurate. A few 1 minute micro sleep in the day keeps me alive. LOL. Hope I can get past this difficult patch as my sleep confidence has gone to 0 to be replaced by worry about tonight. Didn't take long to lose that confidence built over a week built over a few weeks of okay sleep. What has been resilient is not react emotionally to the sleepless nights. That used to make me feel like I'd been run over by a bus the next day. I deploy mindfulness to turn off the chattering brain, and that helps the next day. But boy, does the night last an eternity when unable to sleep at all. I can't feel any hyperarousal, but I guess it's there, as I did not feel sleepy at all last night. Would you recommend staying up all night and not going to bed if the sleepy feeling does not arrive, as one of my main problems has been conditioned arousal and waking up the instant the head hits the pillow? Great channel. Always my first point of reference. Thank you so much for the support, Beanburger. And let me actually write this down right now as we speak. There were, I think, 4 things I wanted to talk about. First thing is success regress. Okay, we're going to talk about success regress. And then we're going to talk about Fitbits and the accuracy. Then we are going to talk about microsleep. No, we don't need to talk about that. That was not very important here. I think we're going to talk about sleep confidence. And mindfulness is great. I don't think we need to comment on that. That's fantastic to hear that. And then we have hyper arousal. Oh yeah, the question of, should I keep myself awake like a whole night? So those are the 4 things that I really want to talk about. So perfect. Let us talk about this right now. So firstly, there are many reasons for having trouble sleeping. There's only one thing that causes insomnia. I also want to point that one out, which is like how our relationship with being awake at night. But many things can cause us to have disturbed sleep. Now, one thing that can surprisingly lead you to this pattern of kind of like getting better, but then not sleeping much at all, and then sleeping better, and then not sleeping well at all, is actually the pressure to sleep that comes from sleeping better. And this is what I call success regress. So what's that about? Well, here's the thing. Somebody who doesn't have like any particular problem sleeping, for them, there is no, they have nothing to lose. They don't even consider having anything to lose, right? And also someone who has a lot of trouble sleeping are quite bothered by their insomnia, of course, but they're also in a way in a place where they have really nothing to lose. They're not sleeping well at baseline, right? But what can happen is when you're starting to learn and you see what's going on, your kind of worries start to dissipate, is that you start sleeping better, okay? And what's happening now is, weirdly, now you have something to lose. Now you have a new, like you're starting to form a new baseline from which you can have a setback. So when you're starting to sleep better, you go like, okay, I slept better 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. And then your brain starts going, oh, is this for real? Can this really keep going? Am I really getting better? Could I? And then more and more seems to hinge upon the following night. It's like, oh, this is night 4. If I sleep good night 4, that means I'm really on the right track. But if I don't sleep on night 4, then that means it's probably hopeless. I'm never going to get better. So as you can see, what's happening is like the more nights you have success, the pressure to sleep starts building more and more. And then eventually you have so much pressure to sleep that you don't sleep. And then you have the regress. I call this again, success regress, a success regress pattern. And I think what is so important to recognize here is it's not the fact that you have success that causes regress. It is how you think about it. It's like you're monitoring each night. You're building pressure by kind of building expectation. And the key here, of course, is that when you become okay with having regress, when you say, oh, I've slept pretty good for 3, 4, 5, 6 nights here, but what happens tomorrow night, either is okay. It doesn't mean anything. There's no message from sleeping little or sleeping a lot. Like, I'm okay with both. Then you end up with only success, no regress. So that is super important. And what also really, really helps with that is, again, I kind of talked about this already, but not monitoring, not keeping track of how long you slept well or how many nights you slept well, etc. letting go of that really, really helps. So that was number one. And that really segues nicely into number two. The number two was the Fitbit, you know? And what I specifically want to talk about here was, you know, Coach Michael often brings up the point that Fitbits are not very accurate. And, you know, some people would argue with that and say, no, they're pretty accurate. And no, this tracker is accurate and this one is not. But I think the point that I wanted to make here was that accuracy is not at all what we don't want accuracy. If anything is accurate, it's probably even more, you know, anxiety provoking, because then it tells you exactly how much you slept or little you slept or omission that, which leads you completely in the wrong direction. When you have trouble sleeping, that comes from a desire to control something that you don't have control over. And the more accurate a tracker is, the more of that sense of control you try to get or you want to have, and the more slippery the whole thing becomes, the more slippery sleep becomes. So accuracy is not something that is good at all. So I think it's first of all, accuracy is not something that is helpful, and secondly, it's not desirable either. And what I think is the most important thing is that, you know, the act of trying to keep track is what causes so much trouble sleeping. So I think it is really, really good when you have trouble sleeping, particularly, to not track, to let go of accuracy. You don't want accuracy. You don't want control. You don't want to try to get control. You want to let go. And so that's why the timeless night is so helpful, that Coach Michael always talks about, where you have, you know, overnight, you make a point of not knowing what time it is, not knowing how much you slept, not knowing anything. That is a powerful act of letting go of control that really brings sleep to you. So good. We talked about number one, number two, and then, number three here, sleep confidence. You know, this is a common one, and I'm really trying to improve my teaching on this one, because I hear it all the time, and I feel like I haven't really come up with a great answer to this one. But what I hear all the time is just like you say, Beanburger, you know, sleep confidence in your sleeps, you know, builds very slowly, and then it's just like one night you sleep a little, and it's like a house of cards or something. The whole thing falls down, and you feel like you're completely like hopeless, like your sleep confidence just like is kind of obliterated by just one night of sleep, which of course is very frustrating. And so the first thing I think here is that sleep confidence, I believe is important in a sense that, you know, it's good if you have evidence that you can sleep. There's nothing wrong with you, right? But what is much more important than sleep confidence is education. You know, education is so much more important, because nobody can take that away from you. When you have understood something, then that you have that for life. Nobody can undo that. Versus confidence, it can be really helpful to have confidence, but things can shake your confidence, but it won't shake your education. So I want to say, you know, education, you know, confidence is a good thing, but just kind of like let it come. Don't focus on confidence, focus on education. That is really, really important. So I think I want to bring that one up. Education always much more important than confidence. And then number four, which was actually the question here from Beanburger, which was, okay, should I just keep myself up for like a long period of time to really make myself sleepy so I can finally sleep? And I think the short answer for me is definitely no. I've seen a lot of people try to do this thing called wake therapy, where you keep yourself up for like 36 hours, and then you only give yourself 4 hours to sleep, and then you keep yourself up for 30 hours, and then you only allow yourself to sleep 4.5 hours, something like that. And the few people that have attempted that have all said it didn't work. And guess why it doesn't work? It is because the longer you kind of force yourself to stay awake, the sleepier you become, true, but the pressure to sleep also grows with every hour, every minute. And guess what? When you've done it, you're like, I kept myself up for 32 hours. Now I'm going to sleep. Then you are so pressured to sleep that you don't sleep. And that is super frustrating. So that is, you know, one reason I do not believe in that approach. The second one is, let's say you kept yourself awake for an ungodly amount of time. You finally allow yourself to sleep and you sleep. Well, guess what? The only thing you've proven to yourself is that you will sleep if you keep yourself up for an extreme amount of time, which is not helpful at all. If anything, that has not helped with that sleep confidence we talked about. It's just, it just makes you seem like there's really something wrong with you because you have to keep yourself up for so long to sleep. So short answer is no, I don't believe in that one at all. I believe much more in the just like get up about the same time every morning. Don't check the time overnight. Give yourself a maybe 7-8 hour opportunity for sleep during which you don't check the time. I think that is totally the way. Beanburger. I hope this helped. I think there was so much in your comments that I felt was like Beanburger is onto it. Like Beanburger, you know, deploying mindfulness like that, very positive, and I think you'll do really, really well, Beanburger. I hope this really, really helped. Very well. So with that said, I think we have one more question. And by the way, everybody who's live here, please feel free, of course, to drop a live question. Always love to answer those. Okay, so this is the last one for today, I believe. It is from Tony. I'm just checking. Yep, that's correct. Let's read this. Tony said the following. Hi, Daniel. I've sent friends who have been worried about sleepless nights to your videos, and they love the positive outlook you have in treating varying cases of insomnia. Thank you so much, Tony, for the support. I'm super happy that your friends have found it helpful. Also, I've hit the halfway point in the 400 video Insomnia Insight playlist, LOL. This is what I talked about earlier. You know, Tony's one of those who's like really going through every single video. And I think, you know, as long as you're learning, it's good. All right. I've just passed the 5-week mark from my 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. sleep restriction regimen. And I want to report that my sleep has been improving. Last week and the week before, I fell asleep quickly, dozed off while reading 6 out of 7 days each week. However, I have hit a bump during the current week when I tried removing some of my sleep efforts like melatonin and sleep stress teas. Every other night has been a bad night of sleep onset. I definitely attribute it to anxiety from trying too hard to figure out a pattern and whether things I do eat during the day will affect my sleep. I know the solution is to not think about it, but it's easier said than done, especially to someone like me who's more prone to overthinking. What are your top tips to clear the worrying mind during those long nights of troubling sleep onset? Thanks again for finding the time to respond. I look forward to hearing from you again. Anytime, Tony. I want to say firstly that I am very, very happy that you've been doing much better over the past several weeks here. That is fantastic. Well done. And I think we should actually start there because it can be actually, weirdly, a little bit tricky to see why you've done so well. You probably think that, you know, I'm just assuming here, but it's just for, you know, it's a good teaching point. So even if this is not the case, Tony, just think of it as a teaching point. But a lot of people in your spot have started to say like, okay, I'm going to keep myself up till midnight and I'm going to get up at 6 no matter what, right? And then start sleeping better. And then think, you know, it is probably because I'm kind of making myself more tired and I'm kind of building that sleep drive, and that's what's been helping me sleep. And that can partially be true, of course. You know, if you're more sleepy, sleep comes a little bit easier. True. But guess what? When someone is like really, 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 really unwilling to have any sleep loss, somebody who's like, I gotta sleep at least this amount of time, that is imperative to me. It doesn't matter how long they keep themselves awake. They're not gonna sleep because the break, the hyperarousal is so strong. So my point here is that the fact that you've been doing better, Tony, I interpret totally as you know, by spending less time in bed, you haven't forced sleep. You have actually been more willing to let go. You know, it's been an act of letting go that has led you to sleeping better. And I think that's so important because if you think of it that way, it kind of relieves pressure. You feel like, oh, I don't have to force myself to sleep. You know, what I've done is being more accepting of not sleeping, and that's led me to do better. And that also points you forward. You know, the more you let go and you're like, if I don't sleep much or sleep a lot, that's okay. That approach is the best one. So so what should you be doing when you have these kind of like you're trying to remove sleep efforts and things are getting a little bit bumpy? Well, I think something super practical that I have become such a believer in this one is the timeless night that Michael always talks about. That instead of, for example, staying up till midnight, getting up at 6, I want to say maybe get up at 6, good, but just stop checking the time at like 10:30, something like that, and then make a point of not knowing the time. If your mind starts calculating, then just doubt it. Be like, I don't think you're right. You think I slept 4 hours. You don't know what's going on. Just let go of time. That is super important. That's kind of my number one. And my number two here is this one. Anxiety, of course, comes from thoughts. And a lot of those anxiety-provoking thoughts that we have, they come from a place of where your brain tries to warn you about something. It wants to make sure you know about something that it thinks is a potential threat. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this and what if that? And if you think about some friend who's going to do something, let's say they're going to buy a house, and you know that this house has a mold issue, and you call your friend and say, hey, I want to tell you about it. And your friend goes like, I don't have time to talk. And they hang up, and they're like, what's wrong? I got to talk to them. You call them again, and you're like, hey, and then the same thing happens. You feel like, I feel terrible. My friend isn't listening, and I have this really important thing to tell them. And then you finally like walk over to the house, bang on the door, and you're like, hey, the house you're about to buy is, and they go like, they cover their eyes, and then they don't want to hear. You go almost ballistic, like, I want to listen to me. There's a problem with this thing you want to do. And then when your friend finally says, hey, I know about that, and that's why I priced, I'm going to offer very little for it, and blah, blah. Then you go, oh, you knew about that? Oh, then I don't have to warn you. Okay. And you're just like, that's good, but why didn't you just tell me about this so I didn't have to get all worked up about this? Well, this has become my new go-to analogy for when you have those kind of anxiety-provoking thoughts. And the thing is, the more you try to like, I don't want to listen to those thoughts, I don't want to have them, I don't want to have anxiety, I don't want to have this and that, the more sticky they become, because your brain tries to warn you and warn you and warn you, right? So I think the key is always to like just listen to the brain. You don't have to do anything. You just listen to the thoughts by doing a daily thought download, writing them down, or just when the brain is like, what if you don't sleep? Then you go like, okay, I'm going to imagine not sleeping tonight. Like listen to those thoughts, and that really makes that go away. And other than that, I want to say, like, Tony, you've done really, really well. You understand sleep efforts. All this is fantastic. Consider what we talked about here, and I think you'll do better and better and better. Any follow-up questions, of course, let me know. Cool. So let's see what's going on here live. So some new questions from, here's Ella Cruz. Hello, coach. I can totally relate to the success and regress. What has helped me was not checking the time, having a sleep window, also definitely acceptance if I slept enough or not. Also, I'd like to share, since I have generalized anxiety, it's not so easy to pay attention if I'd be able to sleep perfect. When anxious thoughts hit it, I feel a bit paradoxical, but I'm fine. Ellie, I was super, super glad to hear this, and thanks so much for sharing. And the success regress that we talked about, I think that is an important one. I'm very happy that made sense to you, not checking the time. Yeah, it is so important. And the acceptance. Now, let's see here. I'd like to share, since I have generalized anxiety, it's not so easy to not pay attention to if I'd be able to sleep perfect. When anxious thoughts hit, it feels a bit paradoxical, but I'm fine. Yeah, I can totally see how, like, of course, when you experience more anxiety, it's much harder to go into like, it's okay if I don't feel perfect. But it sounds like still with us, this you still have maintained this kind of acceptance approach, but a bit paradoxical, but I'm fine, which I think is the way. I'll think you more and more good things are going to come your way, Ellie. I truly believe that. Let's see. Faye says, sounds like too much pressure. Reminds me of times where I was pressured to sleep at home when I came back from hotel rooms. And when I didn't sleep, it used to give me huge anxiety. And I think Faye refers to like staying awake for a long time gives too much pressure. It never helps. I actually have a question. Sometimes I have a bad dream, not really a nightmare, but an unpleasant one. And maybe a night after that, I feel a little anxious to sleep, thinking I might have one of those unpleasant dreams. Not to the point I can't sleep, but it does interfere a little bit. Any way to not worry about having bad dreams? I think that's a good question. And it kind of boils down to what we talked about before, which is I believe nightmares, bad dreams, etc., are the same thing. That we experience them, here and there. Everybody does, and they become more sticky when we try to like make them go away, right? When you're like, I can't have another nightmare tonight. I just need to sleep well tonight. Please I don't want a nightmare, then you become more hyper aroused, more nervous, more anxious, you sleep more superficially. You have, your content of your dreams is probably going to be more anxiety provoking and negative, and you're also going to wake up more easily and remember it. So the key, I think, is always the same. Like, weirdly, it is, going in the direction of, like, if I have like one of those dreams tonight, it'll be okay. I'll be fine. I can have one of those dreams. Remember, when you are willing to experience X, X has no power over you. Or another word is, if you're willing to experience X, then you neutralize the fear of X. So I think that is always the key. Okay. It says, thanks to Coach Martin, I like to say he used the phrase, sleep is effortless, and I have peace of mind. You had also said not to let hyperarousal bother us, and it's helped. Thanks. I definitely agree with you. Let the anxious thoughts come through and accept them and let them flow. They go away. Sleep is effortless. Super, super important. One of my favorite books, The Effortless Sleep Method by Sasha Stevens, is a great one. And Martin, of course, is great too. I learned a lot from him. So cool. I want to thank everyone for contributing to this episode. And I look forward to having everyone back soon. I'll be sharing some thoughts tomorrow. And then Coach Michael and I will be live again Friday. So again, thanks so much for being a part of this community here. And hope to have you back here real soon. Until then, bye-bye.